Mayuri is currently AVP in the Advanced Analytics Division of JP Morgan Chase and Company. She has an extensive work experience of 7 years and above. Some of the organizations that she's worked in includes McKinsey and Mahindra. She has pursued bachelor's and master's both in statistics honors. So if you're one of the students who is not convinced on pursuing either BCom, BBA or Eco Honors and wants to explore other courses, know their industry insights and the growth prospects, then stay tuned and watch the entire video conversation. You took up science in 11 and 12. Most of us who take up science in 11 and 12 target engineering exams, like basically the entrance exams. So, what was your motivation, or what was the thought process behind going for a course like statistics honors in Lady Shri Ram College?
Yeah, so both my dad and brother are engineers from good colleges like NIT. So I think ever since I was in class ninth, it was very clear that all the kids are going to become engineer. So I went to the IIT coaching, I did coaching in physics, chemistry, etc. But I never found it that interesting. I was always good at computers and maths, but I was very clear that I don't want to do engineering or medical. So around 12th, I was pretty sure that I want to go to Delhi University because I had some elder cousins who had gone there, and I knew some of my seniors as well. My target colleges were LSR and SRCC, and then based on my results, I got through stats honors and maths honors at LSR. So when I had these two options, again, I spoke to a couple of seniors. I spoke to people who have done these graduation courses and figured out that probably stats will be a better option because it's more practical as compared to maths. So I decided to go for BSc stats at LSR.
So, what would your advice be to someone who's taken up science 11 and 12 and would not wish to pursue the mainstream, maybe like say the entrance exams and engineering or medical? So, any advice that a person can follow after taking up science in 11 and 12, how they can go ahead in their career?
Sure. So I think the first advice is that talk to people in the industry. A lot of times I see that students do all the career planning and discussion in their own friend circle because it's just easier to understand, right? Like who's doing what. I'm just probably going to pursue the same thing that my classmates are doing. But um, to have better decision making, you should talk to people outside your immediate friend circle. Maybe talk to people who are working in the industry, who have pursued a particular career path to understand what is it that you want to do. In terms of career options, there are quite a lot apart from your traditional engineering and medical. So you can go into journalism, you can pursue something like analytics, data science, you can do actuarial sciences, social sciences, etc. Right? There are quite a lot of options, but a few dimensions to keep in mind is one, your interest level. What is it that you're truly interested in? Because once you go into a field, and if you want to stay in the field, it shouldn't be super boring for you. You should have some sort of an interest area. Second is employability, like maybe do some research on the future growth prospect. Is this a growing field? Is there going to be a lot of demand for this particular role or not? And the third is the growth prospect in terms of salaries and compensation. So based on all the effort that you're spending in, the amount of money that you'll pay for a specific kind of education and college, what is the ROI that you'll get out of it, and what is the future growth prospect of that career path?
Yes, absolutely. Focusing on the employability and the salary component is also very relevant.
Yeah.
Because especially the current generation is so our information consumption is so on the basis of Instagram, where this part of the information is totally hidden. It's more like doing what you would love. That is definitely there, but it should be rationalized as well. It should not. We need to be rational about it in the sense that it should pay certain bills, and we are actually getting some work out of it as well. So
Yeah, I see a lot of people are also pursuing courses in social sciences, which is great. But I think after a certain point of time, they wonder what kind of jobs would I get. So let's say you complete your graduation in philosophy or history or any other course. If you have clarity on what is it that you eventually want to do, then it's great. You can pursue your career path. You can go into a specific field, be an expert. But if at that point you figure out what is it that I should do next to get a job, that's not really a good deal. So I think it's better to have those evaluations early on, like maybe during 11th and 12th. what am I interested in and what is it that I want in life? Do I want to make a lot of money? Do I want to do something in the social sector or any other priority?
Right, absolutely. I had a similar conversation with someone who's done psychology honors from LSR only.
Mhm.
She did an MBA right now because she understood the employment prospects were better if she does an MBA.
Yeah.
So, and then she had other batchmates who did masters from TIS. So we were discussing the same. If you're very sure on what you want to do, then definitely there's no second thoughts.
Yeah.
But if you're not sure, then these aspects also needs to be considered, which gets overlooked a couple of times. Bachelor's in Statistics is a very niche course. It's a specialized course. Can you give a little overview of what the course incorporates over a period of 3 years?
Sure. So during my time, we were a very small batch. We were like 30 students doing stats honors in the entire college. And very academic course. So we had classes from like I think 8:30 a.m. until 5 p.m. all days. Our teachers were also extremely strict. So if you're late to the class by 2 minutes, you'll not get attendance. So it felt like you're in school again rather than college. But the course itself is very academic heavy. So in the first year, you had sampling, linear algebra, calculus, everything that requires a lot of attention and practice to get through. And over the course of 3 years, we did all the fundamental statistics, like starting from probability theory, inference, sampling, some basic practical application using C. So back then we did C, MATLAB, and SPSS, which is not that commonly used in the industry. So I think now those practical applications would have changed. But it was a good combination of theory plus proving certain mathematical theorems plus practical application via coding. I think somebody who wants to pursue this course now, it's good to have certain interest in maths because it's all very stats and maths heavy. It's also good to have some coding background. So I think one of your questions was that what if somebody has done commerce? Is it still a good idea to pursue stats? So I think even if you're from a commerce background or a social sciences background or a proper PCM background, you can still do stats. You would need a little bit of an extra effort on the coding bit if you're coming from a commerce background without computers. But I think apart from that, it should be okay as long as you're good with maths.
Okay, so the major focus is maths application. So if someone has maths in 11 and 12, they can prepare themselves to go for this course. If one has
Yes,
opted for maths, then it's a little. I think then eligibility for this course also doesn't stand. I think maths must be compulsory for most of the admission criteria.
I
So
think so.
yes. So you got your work experience. You've had a long share of corporate experience as well. And could you just give us a little brief of how your experience at McKinsey was and how your role has also evolved from your first role, from the first job till now? What are the few changes that has actually happened in terms of roles and responsibilities?
So after I did my master's in stats, I actually started working with RSA. It's a general insurance firm headquartered in the UK as part of the data analytics team. So in that role, it was pretty basic analytics. So you would analyze data for, let's say, the pricing team, reserving team, or help capital modeling team to come up with some analysis, some bit of automation as well. After that, I moved to McKinsey and Company. So I joined the operations analytics team. In that role, I spent probably 80% of my time staffed on client side. So got an opportunity to understand various sectors. So right from banking, pharmaceutical, manufacturing, transportation, logistics, etc. So you get a good understanding of different sectors. Plus, I also got an opportunity to have experience across geographies. So spent a lot of time in the US, Germany, some nations in Southeast Asia as well, and some of on sites in India. So essentially a good mix of experience across geographies and sectors, plus different kind of problem statement, because you typically work on a project for, let's say, 3 months to 6 months. You would do the analysis, develop solutions and recommendations, and move on to the next one. But you solve a different problem in each experience. So that's a lot of rapid learning in a very small phase. So in that role, it was an individual contributor role where you'd get staffed on a team along with an engagement manager, other associates, and then you'd spend time working, developing a solution and move on to the next one. In my next role, when I moved to Mahindra Group, so I was a part of the Mahindra Group strategy office, and I was leading the data science team for their digital finance business. So that role was very different because you'd also have the entire ownership and accountability of what you build, because you need to take care of ideation, development, and implementation with many stakeholders. So, for example, the machine learning models that we're building, the APIs that we're building, how do you deploy it on the front end of an application? How do you ensure that all of your business stakeholders are completely on board, that your matrix and models are being used on an ongoing basis? So it was like a complete end-to-end ownership kind of an experience. So the role evolved in terms of responsibility. I also started doing a lot more on the people management side, hiring, appraisals, etc. So a lot of new experience there. In my current role, I'm in JP Morgan in the asset management division. So here I'm part of the advanced analytics team, leading initiatives for APAC. So even in this role, there is a lot of ownership in terms of driving certain projects from ideation to development. Implementation typically works with the tech team, but the way the role has evolved is more embedment with the domain. So, for example, you need to understand the business really well apart from the model that you're building, because machine learning development is a smaller part of the role as compared to making sure that those models are being adopted by the stakeholders, they are completely on board. You're understanding the business problems that they're facing and proposing a set of solutions for each of them. So that's how it has evolved over time. But I think one thing that has been consistent across is that it's a continuous learning curve. In whichever role you are in, you always have to keep learning to catch up with the rest of the industry, because this field is just evolving too fast.
Yes, I think I can totally understand the part. I think whenever I or like for me, my academic journey was quite intense one. I was doing CSE, FRM also together. So I thought my learning will hopefully stop after this, but it was a realization and a learning curve that I need to now be more open to learning things, because I have few responsibilities that needs to be taken care of in terms of my work. So I think it actually increases our learning needs to be increased, because we are in charge of a lot of things. As you said, in Mahindra, you were leading end to end. So you, because you were in charge of few things, you had to actually be on your toes also for a lot more things versus in a place where things are not fully under your control. So for some of the few challenges that you must have encountered, like yours domain has been in this field, data science field, for a long period of time, some of the major one or two challenges that you usually face or people usually face, and how can they think of overcoming this?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest challenge is stakeholder adoption, even though generative AI has been the buzz since the last 1 year. But the reality is that many organizations still have a really large gap between where they are in terms of their data maturity, data ingestion, analytics maturity, and where generative AI is. So I think we need to bridge that gap, especially as a data science stakeholder. You need to make sure that all of your business teams are going along with you on the journey. So they understand what you're building, they are completely in loop with the approach that you have taken, and that will lead to an easier adoption. Because what I've seen throughout is that you would build a fancy machine learning model, let's say it performs really, really well. If it does not have adoption from the business team, there's not much impact that you can create. So I think even before going into the technicality of what I'm building, you should first understand what is it that I'm solving for? How does it help my business stakeholder, whether it's the sales team, marketing team, product team, and then build solution in line with their expectation. I think it's okay to start with something a little bit more basic, let's say a rule-based solution, which they understand completely, and then slowly evolve to a more mature machine learning or deep learning kind of a solution. So I think that's the learning to make sure that for any of your solutions to be adopted, you need to make sure that all of your stakeholders are on board.
Okay, okay. So if you could, if so, your domain, there are quite a lot of terms which someone who's in this domain would understand. If you would just try to explain the work that your role incorporates in a very simple layman terms, how would we describe it? If, like a little brief of it, so that someone who's very new to it is in isn't maybe in school or in early college years and is not very sure could have an understanding what this role is?
Sure. So in this particular role, essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to help solve problems. That's the easiest way to explain it. And how you solve the problem is using some certain part of data that is available, whether it's internal, external, some problem formulation and models that you build to solve the problem. It could be as simple as an if else then condition. It could be as complex as a deep learning or a recurrent neural network problem. And then the last element is how do you share those results with the business stakeholders to solve the problem? So maybe I can give one example to explain some of the jargons. And I think you'd already read it somewhere. So, for example, let's say you go to a restaurant to order food and you place an order for, let's say, a pasta. Somebody will take your order, go back into the kitchen, the chef and the team will cook the food, and the waiters will serve it back to you. So, in this example, you are the business stakeholder. The problem that you have is that you're hungry, you want food.
Okay.
The waiters who are taking your order, in this case, could be your APIs, which are taking that information from you, taking it back to the kitchen. The kitchen and the entire department, the chefs, are where your model sits. So they are solving the problem using a certain algorithm. So right now they're cooking food for you, but you can think about it from a backend machine learning model ecosystem, which is processing the entire information and creating the results. The end result in this case is the food, the final prepared food that the waiters will bring back, and that API will deliver it back to you. So that's like the end to end cycle. So the chef in the kitchen is where your entire model deployment sits. Typically, based on the data maturity of the organization, it could be on premises or it could be on cloud. But it's a very layman explanation of how the entire ecosystem would work.
Absolutely, I totally understand. Thank you so much. This was a very interesting explanation, but like linking things to real life examples on a very day-to-day basis. So you've stayed in this domain for a long period of time. I think from whatever I've seen and how the many trends are, domain switching and industry switching happens for many people. So
Yeah.
any part of the domain or what kept you going in this for this many years? What kept you hooked there and I think interested in growing as well?
Sure. So I think when I was in college in third year, I was thinking of a couple of options. I thought, let me do MBA. Some of my friends are doing MBA. Some of them are going for masters. Some of them are just directly working. So a little bit of a confusion there. Then I realized that I do like stats and I want to do something further in that. Back then, I wanted to do PhD as well, but just ended up working right after masters. When I started working, I think what kept me really interested is that you'll never get bored. Like every day, you could just solve a different problem, whether you're in consulting or whether you're in the industry. Uh, there is so much data that is available. There are so many different problem statements, plus so many different kinds of solutions and algorithms available to solve certain problems. Is that there'll never be a point that you feel like my job is repetitive, I'm just done, I'm just repeating the same thing over and over again, because the field itself is evolving too fast. So I think that's what has kept me really interested throughout. Like even now when I open towards data science or medium, there are always so many articles which are brand new, right? Like just the way the pace of the innovation is pretty high to keep you hooked and interested. So probably that's what has kept me interested throughout.
It's very dynamic from what I understand, and it's ever evolving, and
Yeah,
that keeps its newness intact that way.
absolutely.
That's very nice. You've recently completed FRM, both parts of FRM.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that, like managing a course along with job. What made you take this course? Like, in what way was it complementing in what you're doing? So, a little brief on FRM and how it complemented your role.
Sure. So when I decided to do FRM, I was at Mahindra. I was already in financial sector, so that was retail lending, and then I was moving to JP Morgan and asset management. So I thought, now that I've stayed in the financial sector for a couple of years, let me just understand a little bit more and maybe do a course which will help me understand both the risk and the fundamentals of it. So in terms of day-to-day application in my current role, it's not completely applicable, but what it has helped me understand is the different investment vehicles that exist. What are the different kind of risks, credit, market, etc. How do you calculate, let's say, the pricing of different solutions and just a better understanding of the entire domain. I think for anyone working in a specific sector, like apart from the technical skill, I think it's equally important to understand the domain as well, because that is the only way to actually understand the business and solve a problem. So it's always good to do these additional courses like CFA, FRM based on what your interest areas are.
Yes, they do enhance. Like when I was in my first role, CFA as a course was very value additive, whatever knowledge that I had gained. So
Yeah.
yes, courses are good if you're in that domain. A little brief on how you've prepared for FRM along with jobs, so that if somebody is preparing for FRM, a course like this, how they can go about with its preparation.
So I think the first thing is having a plan. So you should know when is it that you want to give the exam, how much time do you have on a day-to-day basis, creating a proper organized plan on how much syllabus can I really complete, what is it that I want to do on this particular day. And the second thing is smart study. So rather than aiming to finish, I think in FRM level 2, I had 60 chapters or something. So rather than aiming to finish the entire syllabus and just reading through it, it's important to pick out the most important concepts. So, for example, if you look for these online sources or if you talk to some of your friends, you'll identify that out of these 60 chapters, maybe 30 of them are the most important, and majority of my exam paper would be based on these. So maybe start with those 30, understand them really well, practice all of your questions and answers, and then if you have time, move to the other, because sometimes you get into that mode of completion rather than understanding. I think that's a habit that we should not take up. So even in my preparation is making sure that I'm understanding something completely. I've mastered a particular topic before I move to the next one. Even if it means that not completing the entire subject, it's okay to maybe do like smart study 70% of the subject. You can still crack it. And the third thing is consistency. So while you're working, after coming back from work, it's very difficult to get into the mode of studying. You just want to chill, maybe watch TV, meet friends. But building that consistent habit, like even if you're sitting for 30 minutes to study, that's okay. But build that habit of spending some time every day to just learn something new. So I think that will help in cracking it.
I think if I summarize, it's consistency, smart study. Basically, it's like ABCD technique, we call it, like where the 70% of the data questions will come, focusing on that. And then going forward to 30%, 10%,
Yeah.
or 20%, 10% that way. Right. And then being uh, having a right plan for it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So you've been in this domain for a couple of years, like right from the start of your academic journey as well, academic career. So what are the few personality traits or attitude that this domain would fit to? Like for someone who's in 11 and 12, to avoid domain switching, to whom this domain would fit better that way.
Yeah, so I think anyone who's interested or has an aptitude in maths, it's a great field to be in, because the amount of data that is being generated in the world is exponentially increasing. The amount of computing power that exists is also exponentially increasing. So more and more jobs will be created in this field. And that will be across sectors, whether in financial sector, whether you are in education, medical sciences, etc. Right. So I think it's always better to go for a field which has a lot of opportunity to grow further. So it's a growing market, the demand is increasing. So that's there. Anybody's interested in that. And I think even for somebody who's in, let's say, a commerce role or any other role, and they're kind of confused on what to go in, it's okay to do maybe a master's or like a bachelor's in stats, maths, or data science as a foundational course. And then it will establish a baseline for you. And after that, if you want, you can switch, do an MBA and maybe go to another industry or maybe go in a specific sector. But I think as a starting point, it will still give you a fair understanding of how do you use data to derive insights for better decision making. So I probably recommend it to everyone.
Yeah, you seem very passionate. That is, I think, one of the best part, and maybe that has kept you going for so long.
Yeah.
Like being passionate for what you're doing and rationalizing that passion as well, that it gives you work, right work, and money along with that work. I think you've right
Absolutely.
said it in the beginning of your conversation, because there are a lot of passions that might not give you work or maybe money. So it creates another hassle as well.
Yeah.
A work that gives you money but no passion, that's another hassle. So finding the right balance between the three is a challenge, but that's where we have to find it. So you've been in this domain for, and you've stayed in the corporate domain for a number of years. And there's this trend that in the entry level roles, we do see a lot of females. Almost it's to a greater extent, it's 40% also the ratio is. But as we move further in the move along the corporate ladder, it gets reduced to very, very low percentages of number. Some of the factors are like location movement after they settle down personally, or maternity is definitely one of them. So, what is your take on it? How can this be balanced, or what can be the approach from a female perspective?
So I think there has to be a two-pronged solution. One, from an individual perspective, I think it's very important to have the right ecosystem and the right support system. I'm quite privileged and lucky to have a very strong ecosystem that my family is super supportive. Everyone is okay, like you do whatever you want, you work wherever you want. So that's quite nice. But I know that not everyone is as privileged and comes from that background. So I think one is finding the right balance and ensuring that you're able to get some sort of support from the family to pursue your ambition. And the second is for organizations to create a more supportive environment. I know that a lot more organizations are investing a lot on D&I. I think every large organization has it as one of their main agendas to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you would have seen that many organizations also have this returnship program. They want people who are on career break, they can come back and join the workforce. How do you increase the proportion of females, not just at a junior level, but at a mid and a senior level as well? So I think a lot of progress is already ongoing, just that it has to be enabled a little bit more and understand what are the main problems, which is reducing that workforce participation and then addressing those. But I think it's going to be a long journey because even now there's still very visible gaps, at least at a senior level, and especially in STEM fields as well. So I think it's going to be a long journey to get to the right balance, but support from both families and organizations will be required to get there.
Yes, support from families is a very personal thing plus a
Yeah,
structure. It is a mix of both from what the structure has been for so long and personally the kind of family that we get.
yeah,
Organizationally, I think that's also like I was discussing it with someone, like say supposedly after maternity, having those crash centers or things, like having few facilities where even female workers can be involved in the organizations, or maybe work from home mobility. These are the few things that I can think of right
yeah.
from the top of my head.
I think some organizations have started doing the flexibility option for female workers, even at a plant, like not just in the corporate centers, but even who's working at a plant or on the shop floors, to have that flexibility to work from home or have some flexibility to manage their time if they're pregnant or on maternity leave. Having daycares at the office center, having some support for childcare, even going forward, even if the kid is like 1 year or 2 year old. So I think those elements are being rolled out in different organizations, still in probably smaller numbers. But I think that's one way to balance out the scales.
Right, right. Oh, yes, it's a long journey, but yeah, some improvements have taken place. It's a process and it's a journey that will for a very good balance to happen.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mayuri. I mean, I'm extremely thankful that you've given your time on a weekend. It's I know how extensive weekdays are, and maybe now weekends also for you. But thank you so much for this time and all your insights on this. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was great connecting with you, Shreya.
Yes, same here. Thank you.